So before I get into the video, I do want to address the egg shortage that's going on in the country. When I started planning for this video, we weren't having an egg shortage. You could go get eggs anytime you wanted. I started getting a little at a time from Costco, primarily because I didn't want to buy 42 dozen at one time and have to endure glances all through Costco. I know that makes me wimpy because I care what people might think, but it was just overwhelming. Just like when I do rotisserie chickens, I don't buy them all at once. Pray for me that I can get over that because it's a thing. But we knew that eggs were getting expensive, but there wasn't a shortage at that time. So we went to Costco on several trips and got a little bit each time. We always made sure we left plenty for everyone else, never cleaned them out. But then all of a sudden, right as I was putting not as I was putting the eggs in the freeze dryer, but on that day, Dave told me about a news story where Costco had no eggs. And I thought, oh boy, here I am about to publish this video on freeze drying 42 dozen eggs. And people are going to think I'm the cause of the shortage, but it wasn't me. So I'm actually pretty excited about this. This is without a doubt the most interesting freeze drying that I've done to date. I mean, I did make milk duds and other things like that, but this is kind of crazy. I mean, 42 dozen eggs. Well, the only way to get it going is to get started, I guess. I think I'm ready to go. Here is my big bowl from my KitchenAid mixer, and here is my bigger bowl, my 20-quart bowl that I use all the time. I love this thing. I'll put my eggshells in here. One down, 503 to go. This seemed like such a good idea at the time. I'll just use my whisk. I actually did use the whisk on all 42 dozen, but here and there I would notice that somehow a yolk escaped the whisk, and as I was pouring them into plastic bags for storage, I would see this one whole yolk plop into the bag. So I made sure to run every batch through the Vitamix for just 3 or 4 seconds before pouring them in the trays. You do want to make sure you scramble them. It will make for more even freezing and drying, and it will help you avoid air pockets. But you don't want to mix them too much. Just a real quick little run in the Vitamix or with your blender. Ideally, you'd like to pre-freeze the eggs in the tray, but as I've told you before, my trays are just way too big for our freezer. So I decided to pour them into bags in groups of 6 dozen, and the temperature was hovering in the mid-30s, so they were perfectly fine waiting out on the patio. And here we are pouring in the trays. I will say just go slowly, start in a corner, take your time. It's better than cleaning up a mess. And for me, I was able to get 14 cups of eggs in each tray. I think I probably could have gotten all 42 dozen, except I didn't want to push my luck. And I feel like I should have turned my rack just a tiny bit to even it up slightly. So I was happy to do 36 dozen, and I saved the other 6 for the next batch. Eggshells, get your eggshells. Please, please, no pushing. I've got plenty for all of you. Line up. I do have plans for these eggshells. I want to use them in the garden, but it's going to take a little time. It will involve vinegar, so stay tuned for that. sure to stick around to the end because I'm going to rehydrate the freeze-dried egg powder and fry an egg. Good morning. So we were supposed to leave yesterday to go to Molson up in the Okanagan to the ice fishing competition that's being held up there. And the eggs just were not drying. And we had a little glitch that I think I'm going to share on the next video. It has to do with the way that the gasket seals. We've come upon this a couple of different times and we're working out a fix right now, but it did set us back several hours. And so not only that, but I had looked online to see what everybody else was doing, because that's what we do, and saw that a lot of people had said it took 24 hours. Well, I didn't take enough into account that my trays are larger and hold more, and it ended up taking over 40 hours for the batch. So we missed the ice fishing, but hopefully we will still catch the outhouse races. That's how we do things in the Okanagan, So let me just talk to you for a moment about ways that you know that your food is fully freeze-dried. Sometimes when you've had it in the freeze dryer for 40 hours, you kind of just assume that it's ready, but you can never assume. So one surefire way to know if it's done is to weigh every tray and write it down and then put it back in for another 2 hours. And I'm talking once the dinger has gone off and your freeze dryer is telling you that it's ready. You can weigh it, record it, put it back in the freeze dryer, and then add an hour or two. And then weigh everything again and see if it's changed weight. And if it has changed, that means it really wasn't ready and you did need that extra time. And you can then add a little bit more time. But just right off the bat, when you take your trays out, you can tell if the trays are cold, you're not done. If the trays are warm, and sometimes they're very warm, chances are you may be done, but you still need to check. I did have a commenter suggest that we use a moisture meter, and my husband is a home inspector and he has a $700 moisture meter, which somebody wrote to me privately and asked for a recommendation for one, and I gave her that one, but then I gave her one from that same maker that was kind of more of a regular person model, if you know what I mean. That's a lot of money to spend on a moisture meter. And while I love it, the problem is you can go doink, 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 doink all over the tray and get 0 reading and think you're ready, and then only to find out when you're breaking the food apart that there's one little area that's cold or a little icy. And that's because a moisture meter has 2 prongs like this, and you're only really measuring the moisture between those 2 prongs. You could be off by just a little bit and have moisture there. I love so much when people make comments. Please do comment. First of all, it helps me to know that you're there because it's so easy with YouTube to think, is this thing on? As I've said many times. But I love when people comment, but I've learned so much from you. And one commenter suggested that I not select the either defrost or no defrost option until every single bit of my run has been packaged. And that made a lot of sense to me. I had not been doing that because if I took out a tray and everything was good, I just went right over and hit the button to say no defrost. I don't know. I never ever hit the defrost button because I'm cheap like that. I'm just going to let nature take its course. But it makes sense to just wait until you're completely done packaging everything. And I'm so thankful that that person said that, because I did on this occasion. at 3:30 in the morning when I just woke up and thought, I'm going to go check right now. I did package a little bit and everything was fine. And then again, I found that little cold spot, so everything had to go back in. Another thing is people have commented before on how they never touch their food with their bare hands. But I will push back on that because it's my bare hands that can tell if there's a little ice spot somewhere. And you can have an entire tray be fully dried and then have one little spot be icy, and your hands are going to pick that up, but I don't think I would have been able to tell that if I had gloves on. So there you go. So that's just a little bit about how to know if everything is fully freeze-dried. If you don't have a food processor, don't worry about it. It really does break apart very easily. So just do the best you can. You want to get it as fine as possible because that will make rehydrating that much easier. And I'll show you what that looks like in a few minutes. Okay, that was a lot of work and a long time of waiting for that run to be finished. But oh, how satisfying it is to have all these Mylar bags of freeze-dried egg powder waiting for me to store them away. So now that we have freeze-dried the eggs and packaged them up, I'm going to open a jar and let's go see what it's like to rehydrate them, and then I'll fry an egg. Rehydrating these could not be easier. It's just a 1-to-1 ratio. For 1 egg, you want 2 tablespoons of freeze-dried egg powder and 2 tablespoons of warm water. Mix those together and let them sit for 5 to 10 minutes to allow time for the absorption of the water. Then stir them again and you're good to go. Okay, here we are. Moment of truth. I'm going to take a bite. Tastes like chicken. No, it tastes exactly like an egg that I had broken out of its shell into a pan. I seriously wouldn't have known a difference. And that to me is a huge game changer because I picture taking Mylar bags of this camping with us. I picture us taking it to our little cabin in the Okanagan and maybe leaving it there for our trips back. It's amazing to think that you can have a dried version of a food and with just a little water, it turns right back into its original form. So, it's funny. I had a friend kind of grilling me one day about why I was doing all this freeze drying. And I could tell by her tone that she didn't want to hear any of that prepper nonsense. So I didn't give her any prepper nonsense. But I did talk to her about the fact that when I freeze dry something at the prices from 2025, it will stay at the prices of 2025. And so whether I rehydrate it in 2026 or 2035 or beyond, I'm eating food that I paid much less for than if I bought it right then and there. So to me, that's one of the best reasons to freeze dry. But I really think you should try this. I don't recommend 42 dozen. I didn't even get 42 dozen out of my extra large freeze dryer. But if whatever size you have, just try a little bit and see what you think. think. I think you're going to be surprised at how really beautifully these eggs turn out and how they're so much like their shell enclosed original form. You know what I mean? Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.